Hello, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Cece. If you're not new, thanks for joining me again. Today we are here for Freebook Friday.
Cozy Mystery Edition!
Freebook Friday is a new series on my channel where I look into these free ebooks that you can get on Amazon. Up until now, when I heard free ebooks on Amazon, I always thought paranormal smut. Graphic erotica, cheap 60-page, low-quality books. And then a friend told me, well, that's not always the case. There's really cool stuff out there. And then I thought to myself, why not try and make a series out of it, read a couple of them, and just review them properly and see if we want to give it a go and read it, or you can pass on it. I also want to use this opportunity to sometimes potentially collaborate with other content creators. Well, and today I am super happy to have a guest here, and let us introduce her now. Hi, Hope.
Hey.
Do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Hope, and I have a channel called Jackalope Hope, and I'm on Twitter as @Jackalope Hope, and I read a lot of fantasy and mystery, and I'm really excited to be here today.
Well, I'm excited to have you. So let's dive right in. I haven't talked about what the book was that we read together yet. So do you want to introduce the book and give us a quick summary?
Sure. So we read Death in the Park by London Lovett, which is the first book in the Firefly Junction Cozy Mystery series. And this follows a journalist named Sunny Taylor who moves to this small town called Firefly Junction, in part to be closer to her family, and also in part to renovate this old manor and turn it into a bed and breakfast. And while she's there, she takes up a job at the local newspaper to help fund her renovations. But on her very first day, she gets given this human interest story assignment, and she's pretty convinced it's not going to be very interesting. But then, within a couple of hours, it turns into a murder investigation, and Sunny becomes determined to solve it before the police can.
Awesome, thank you. That was a really good summary. I don't think I could have summarized it that well. So let's dive into the review. Let's start talking about the characters. What did you think of the characters in the story?
For the most part, I really liked the characters. They were kind of a mixed bag because I felt like there were some that we got a lot of information about, like particularly Sunny and her family members. But then there were quite a few that I would have liked to see a little bit more development from, like the detective character and Sunny's friend Rain. But overall, I liked them a lot.
You would have liked to see more of the detective. I don't know if I would have liked to see more of the detective, to be honest. But that might be because I am not into the romance part of this, and honestly this character just gave me major I'm gonna be the hot love interest vibe, and I can do without that.
Yeah, that's fair. I think he feels a little bit like the hero out of a Hallmark movie.
Yes.
He's just a little bit flat and a little bit cheesy. But I think part of that was that he just wasn't given much development at all. He just kind of showed up at random intervals to be the, love interest, and that was it.
That's a good point. Well, I didn't feel like he didn't just show up in random situations to be the love interest. I felt like he showed up in random situations to potentially push the storyline further. So he wasn't a character for a character's sake. He was there to potentially become a love interest, but also to fill the holes where our main characters, our main protagonist, potentially couldn't have gone that extra mile. Yeah,
he was a little bit of a plot device more than a character.
Yeah. So I enjoyed our main character. Aside from that, I struggled a little bit with the characters because there were just too many. There were too many names for me to keep track of, and also I felt like there were potentially, if the author would have dialed down on naming people that have no position in the book, that are just mentioned on the sidelines. Like, for example, at one point she's talking about a memory where a boy at a birthday party, I think, puked into a fountain or something, and she named the person who had the birthday party, and she named the boy. And I was like, okay, because they are mentioned by name, are they becoming important? But that was the only time those characters were mentioned. And that was just becoming way too much for me to keep track of.
Yeah, there were a ton of names that got thrown out, and I think at times it felt like it was trying to set up the idea that, like, it's a small town and everybody knows everybody, so they're, like, able to just name drop everybody in town. But it did make it really difficult to kind of keep track of who everybody was and who was important and all of that kind of thing.
So potentially these are building out because it's a series in later books of this like series, but it was too much for me in the beginning. We already hinted a little bit towards the storyline, the detective being a plot device and it feeling like a Hallmark movie. What else do you want to talk about the storyline plot? How did you enjoy the overall story?
I liked the story. I felt like the ending was kind of rushed, where it felt like it was developing kind of slowly. We were getting a little bit of clues here and there. And then it got to a point where it felt like the author realized, oh, I need to have a solution to this. I need to, like, close up the story. And so it hit this point where all of a sudden there was a lot of exposition and kind of info dumping happening towards the end.
Yeah, I totally see what you mean. And I don't think there was even a need for it because I felt the overall storyline, the solution to it all, was a very good arc and it didn't need rushing at all. It felt like it made sense. It was a nice Hallmarky, as we already mentioned, setup. It was a small town, and well, was it the most shockingly plot development? Probably not, but I enjoyed it. The only thing that I had a moment of what the hell is going on right now is what you just mentioned at the end, the info dump, where it felt like the author was like, okay, our protagonist is not able to get these few things and explanations of the in-between bits. So she solved the overall mystery, but she's not able to get all the tidbits of information from in between by herself. So we're just going to send a character in who tells her all the background and pretty much tells her everything, which even doesn't make sense that this character would do that. And that felt very infodumpy. I think there could have been a smarter solution to do that, but other than that, the overall mystery was really good. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I agree. I liked the mystery part of it, and I liked that. I thought the ending was a little odd, but I felt like all of the clues came together and formed like a cohesive picture. It didn't feel like we were getting blindsided with new information at the very end, just for like a cheap twist or something.
Right.
So
by the ending feeling odd, do you mean the solution to the murder mystery, or do you mean other parts?
I mean the solution in that it, like, not quite convoluted, but like the setup for the murder was just a little bit strange. It required a little bit of suspension of disbelief, I think. Kind of the motives and things like that.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's talk a little bit about the writing style.
I liked it. I thought the descriptive parts were really good, and I was actually really enjoying all the random descriptions of food in the book. It was making me hungry every time I sat down to read. But I loved that part. The dialogue was a little bit clunky, I thought, at parts. Not all of the dialogue, but like certain sections of it, particularly with the detective, were a little bit clunky. But overall, I really enjoyed the writing. I thought it was well done.
So I'm wondering if you consider the dialogue a little bit clunky because you felt like the dialogue did not feel like a good representation how people in that area would be speaking. That's what you told me during our buddy read, because I did not feel that necessarily that much. And I enjoyed the writing style. The only issue that I had with the writing style was the name dropping, which sounds like dropping famous names, which is not the case. Just too many damn names in this book.
Yeah.
But other than that, I do enjoy when a writing style is so easy and non-spectacular that you forget that you're reading, and that definitely happened in this book.
Yeah, I think the writing style in this book worked really well for the whole cozy mystery vibe.
Yeah.
Because it was really easy to just get lost in it and read a huge chunk really quickly. So I think it worked great for that, for the atmosphere of the book.
No, I fully agree. Let's quickly dive into what you liked best about this book.
I think my favorite parts of the book were the protagonist and the kind of family dynamics that happened, because I was really enjoying the scenes where we got to see Sunny kind of interacting with her two sisters and her brother-in-law. I thought that was a lot of fun, and I liked that it was just showing this kind of wholesome, happy family in a cute little small town. I thought that was a lot of fun, and I thought it was neat to see those relationships kind of develop over the book.
I agree. I bet that we are getting a few more layers to the wholesome, like, nice family. I don't think that's all that there is throughout the next books, but I enjoyed the cozy Hallmarky vibe. I'm actually not that big of a Hallmark movie person, but sometimes when you're just in the right mood, then I just love them, and I felt so ready for a cozy murder mystery and for exactly that feeling, and that was totally delivered. So that was my favorite. I really did enjoy the main character and her struggle with the guidance that she was given and the way that she is in her job, and she's supposed to cover this stupidly boring story, and she's trying to navigate this small town with small town dynamics that she is unaware of how they work. I thought that was so charming in a way. So yeah, I think that was my favorite part. This whole cozy feeling and this charming trying to navigate a small town.
Yeah, I agree. That was a really good part of the book.
So, is there anything that you potentially did not end up liking that much?
Like we said before, the dialogue felt a little bit clunky to me, and it really does have to do with the fact that this book, I don't think we've mentioned this at this point, but it's set in the Smoky Mountains, and I actually grew up in the Smoky Mountains, so there were parts of the dialogue that felt stiff to me, just because it felt a little more formal than people in a small town in the Smoky Mountains would probably talk. There were a lot less, nobody was saying y'all, and there was a lot of, like, it is, would have, things like that, where I think if you were actually in a small town in the Smoky Mountains, people would be shortening things, because that happens a lot. In southern dialects, we tend to shorten things and try to speak very quickly, so that felt a little bit off to me, but it, didn't at all ruin my enjoyment of the book. It was just slightly clunky.
I totally get what you are saying. I think if you wouldn't have mentioned it, I would have completely forgotten where it plays, because it was mentioned once, and then also name dropping with street names, like this like we are going across this name crossing and then down this street and then into this street, and I was getting lost in this map that they were painting in my head. But aside from the street names, it was just mentioned, I think, once or twice that this is in the Smoky Mountain area, but it felt so generic that it could have been any small town in the US.
Yeah, it felt very generic. I think it's mentioned, first couple of pages, because the Sunny comments about, how the Smoky Mountains are this really great backdrop for the bed and breakfast that she's trying to open. But that, I think, is the only time it gets mentioned in the entire book. And then after that, it very much is generic American small town.
I mean, potentially it will become a topic again at a later stage. We don't know that. But it doesn't feel like it will. So for me, there was another element that I did not enjoy as much. I was ready for a cozy murder mystery, but they also introduced some sort of a paranormal layer that I felt was completely unnecessary. I was not ready for a paranormal cozy mystery, which is absolutely a fine genre in itself, but I felt like I wasn't ready for it, I wasn't expecting it, and it didn't work for me in this setup and how it was done. I think it was just a tiny bit in the background, and I feel like this will be the big storyline that will tie all of the books in the series together. Potentially. It might also just be that this is going to be the second book and then the paranormal aspect is over. But I have a feeling that we will have a paranormal aspect that will tie all the books together, and that will be like this overarching story arc. And I did not care for it at all. It just felt weird and off to me, and I wanted it gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't mind the paranormal aspect, and it is in the, like, summary on the back of the book, so you kind of know going in that it's going to be there, but I think it wasn't executed as well as it could have been. If it was going to be there at all, it was a little bit, like you said, kind of pushed too far to the background, where you're kind of expecting it to pop up at some point, and then it just doesn't for a long time. And then by the time that it does, it just feels like an extra unnecessary layer on top of everything else.
Yeah, it's just, it felt like it was just there to become a cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing else. And honestly, I didn't even remember that it was on the back of the book. Thanks for reminding me that it was, because I don't remember it. Potentially, I have just put it aside there might be some mystery feeling, some aspect, but not in the way that it was introduced and not in the way that it was executed. So it just didn't feel right. I'm not completely against paranormal, and there's a time and place for it, and if it's done well, it's so much fun, but in this case, it just wasn't done well.
Yeah, it felt a little out of place in this book.
All right, so let's talk about the rating, and then let's share if we think this book is a read or pass. So what rating did you end up giving this book?
I gave it 3 stars because for me that's a good rating. That's like, I enjoyed this book. It just didn't blow me away. I think it's a fun read, but it's definitely not like a new favorite or anything.
I absolutely agree. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars as well. I think that if you are going into it with the right expectations, similar to a Hallmark movie, when I sit down to watch a Hallmark movie, I do not expect to have a mind-blowing artistic thriller that will be my new favorite movie that I recommend to everybody. I'm sitting down just to enjoy some coziness for a while and then check the box and put it aside and kind of forget it again. So if you go in with the right expectations, it's a lot of fun. That's what the positive 3 represents. It completely gave me what I expected, what I wanted, but it also is not a book that will blow your mind.
Yep. I think that Hallmark movie comparison is a really apt comparison for it. It feels very like a Hallmark movie, and it is, like, if you're in the mood for that, it's great.
Exactly. All right. So the last thing that is left to do is give it our read or pass. It's a read.
Same.
It's a definite recommendation to read it, with the caveat that you have to be in the right mood and have the right expectations. Anything else to add from your side?
No, I think that pretty much sums it up.
All right. So thank you so much for joining me on my channel, Hope. It was great reading this with you. It was great having you here. So
yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for inviting me. This was a good time.
Welcome. All right, I had tons of fun. So the only thing left to do is please hit that subscribe button, like this video if you liked it. If you have any books that you enjoyed or that you would like for me to review in this format, put it down in the comments. If you want to review a book with me, reach out to me. And please make sure to check out Hope's social media as well. And I hope to see you again on my channel real soon. Until then, bye!
Just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment. Can we stay here together? If I could stop the time, don't you know